When you're that one guy competing with like 10 people just to win that eBay auction for Ectotron.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass, 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 ass.
Hello everyone, it is Briximus Prime back for another Transformers action figure review, and today I'm going to be reviewing Transformers Ghostbusters Ectotron. Now specifically, this is a slight re-release of the original one, which I am going to be mentioning about the original Ectotron a lot in this video, but specifically I'm going to be taking a look at the Ghostbusters Afterlife version of Ectotron. So let's just get right on into the review by starting with that packaging. And now taking a look at the packaging here, right back here, the Ectotron here does have the little crossover logo right there. It's got the nice image of the Ecto One. It says Transformers, Ectotron, Ecto One, Hasbro. And then over here, it's got that nice grid pattern. It's got the Ectotron in robot mode and vehicle mode. And it's got advertisement about Muncher and Slimer. Here on the back, it's got that nice classic retro carded look with the whole thing right here with the stats and the specs and giving a brief bio about him and about the Transformers. Authentic Transformers and Ghost Corporation. This particular version of Ectotron came with a pack-in comic book. And I have to admit, this artwork looks phenomenal. And I like how I like this comic. And I really miss the days of when comics were packed in with Transformers. It's what got me into comic books and it's what helped me keep in with Transformers back when I was a kid. I really love that they did this.
By the way, for anyone who is trying to get this guy on eBay, well, you guys are basically screwed, and holy Primus. If you're paying that much money, it better be free delivery, you son of a bitch.
And now taking a look at Ectotron's accessories. Now just FYI, technically the original Ectotron, the original release, did not come with the little Muncher here. He only came with the Slimer and the Proton Pack. Muncher looks really good and pretty accurate to his original on-screen appearance. He's made out of this nice semi-rubbery, semi-translucent blue plastic, and I really like that. He's nicely molded and sculpted. Would have liked maybe some painting on this, but he looks fine on his own. And he has a little peg on the bottom on his bottom, and that basically allows you to plug it into a stand. You can make him look like he's floating in the air. So very nice little Muncher figure. Again, this is the exact same Slimer that came with the original release, and he looks pretty molded and sculpted very well. And I have to admit, this figure looks pretty good. And again, he has a peg on the bottom that allows him to float around and everything, like the green plastic they used on Slimer. And then finally, the Proton Pack here transforms out of the baggage and everything the car has on the top. And so it's a really cool integration of parts and everything. I like how all that compresses, all that mechanical stuff compresses into his gear, onto his Proton Pack. And then obviously you can remove the Proton Wand and have the little cord right here. And it's a very nice execution of a really iconic. On the back of Ectotron, there is a little tab right there and the little port on the light bar, and you just plug this right onto there. And again, you can either have the Proton Wand stored on the pack, or you can have it plugged into his hand like so. And there you go. Now you can have your Ectotron busting some ghosts with a proton stream. He had more of a, Now, taking a look at the Afterlife Ectotron's head sculpt, I actually really love how this guy looks over the original release. The head sculpt here looks very nice. Upon the original release, he had more of a, you can actually see his mouth, and he had kind of a noseless face. You can kind of see his blue eyes slightly peeking out from underneath his PKE goggles. Has that the old one also had is that I wish the goggles could slide up and down on their own separate piece. Really would have liked that, because then we could have at least seen his mouth, or I don't know, it just would have been a little bit better. Right there, he's got his little Ghostbusters badge. It says Ectotron. Love that detail. I also love how he's got the Cadillac front right here. He also has little bits of rust on the front. Like I said, this is the Ghostbusters Afterlife version, so he's got bits of rust and everything. One other thing is that, like I said, there are some painted details that are slightly different, but obviously I like that he's got these bits of tan and everything that kind of invoke that Ghostbusters jumpsuit look. And overall, I think he looks great. The design of the robot is good. He's just a little bit kibbly in some areas. Spot / Power of the Prime's Inferno. Believe it or not, this figure actually is a heavy retool of the Transformers Combiner Wars Onslaught / Hotspot / Power of the Primes Inferno robot mode. And this guy, you just can't believe that it's actually that mold because of just how heavily retooled the vehicle mode looks. I still appreciate just the existence and the concept of this figure. Going over Ectotron's articulation, again, it's the same one as the original one. The head can swivel from side to side, and if you use this transformation joint, he can look up and he can look down a little bit. No head pivoting or anything. Shoulders can shift up and down. They can rotate forward. Can't really go back because of all the kibble. And again, they can move outward right there, but they can also move outward right here as well. He does have a bend at the bicep as well as a proper bend at the elbow, and then in between those two joints he does have a elbow swivel. Nothing at the wrist except for in and out. Really would have liked some wrist swivel. He doesn't have a waist swivel due to transformation and everything. Would have liked them to incorporate one, but honestly I'd rather sacrifice that than a wrist swivel. Hips kick forward that far. They can't really kick back that far. They can move outward that far on soft ratchets. Thigh swivel. Bend at the knee, due to all the kibble, he barely gets a 90 degree. And then, sadly, no ankle pivot whatsoever. Would have liked for them to have remolded this area so that it would have had some nice ankle pivot. But overall, I still think the figure is really good in concept. Ectotron. And yeah, as you guys can tell, I like this figure enough that I was willing to buy and own both of these figures. And you really can see the contrasts between the two, how this one has that off-white kind of white, and this one's the nice bright white. And I really like the differences here. The differences are enough that, again, I feel like I have two separate entire figures here. And so you can see the differences here. Here he is compared next to the Power of the Primes Inferno / Onslaught / Hotspot. Now let's... Megatronia? Who the frick is Megatronia?
And then here's me reusing footage because I am too lazy to compare these guys again.
By the way, getting this whole into these little slots, and it always likes to unpeg and come out and not really tab in all the way, and then you gotta plug it in and go back and fix it again, make sure it's all flushed, and then it makes this thing pop out, and then you gotta go in and finagle it in there again, and then... Taking a look at Ectotron's alternate mode, the Iconic Ecto One, and now here's taking a look at Ectotron's alternate mode, the Iconic Ecto One, the famous vehicle of the Ghostbusters, and it looks great here. This is the main gimmick of all the crossover figures, is what they transform into. Very rarely do we ever get a crossover figure where it's the robot mode that's the main crossover part of it. Also, one thing I want to mention is that there are some issues with this thing, like for example how this area doesn't like to fully tab and compress in, so the Ghostbusters logo always has this ugly looking gap right there in the middle. I really hate it. Also, this little ladder bit doesn't like to tab in where it's supposed to. That little rubbery tab is supposed to go in there, but because it's made out of rubber, it doesn't feel like going in there. So I just let it rest right there, and it does absolutely nothing. That untabbed, just ignore that. Periodically throughout it, just because this is literally the only bit of rust on the figure. Everything looked really good with the white and silver, and it rolls really well, and I like how the front comes together. But overall, I think it is a great interpretation of the iconic Hollywood vehicle. And again, the rims and everything look really good with the white and silver, and it rolls really well, and I like how the front comes together like this with the license plate as well as the license plate there on the side as well. And then bringing in that original Ecto One, as you can see, the major differences are in the details between this one being the older one and this being the brand new one. And also, I actually prefer the look of this one over this one, but I love the robot mode of this one over this one. So I always keep this one in robot mode and this one in vehicle mode. No trouble by me. And again, I like the details on this one as well. Just this one is all nice, clean and shiny, bright white. On the opposite side, I just prefer how that looks better. So yeah, that is really it for this comparison. Also, just because it's a feature in the instructions, I thought I'd mention it. There is a peg right here on the Proton wand, here in the alternate mode, where you can store the little ghosts and peg them on right there, just as some kind of storage for these two. You won't believe me that these two use the exact same exoskeleton toy, but trust me, they do. And that is basically it for. Please don't tell me what a Megatronia is. I don't want to know. And the normal version. I'm kind of reviewing both at the same time. Afterlife version, and I like the vehicle mode of the regular version. And honestly, both of them have their pluses. If I had to really talk about these figures, again, like I said, I prefer the robot mode on the Afterlife version, and I like the vehicle mode of the regular version. And honestly, both of them have their pluses and their pros and cons, but my main problem is I just wish that these figures had that little bit more love put into the robot mode, just tiny little things, like for example, wrist swivels would have been really nice, because as you can see, he is barely pulling off the double-handed Proton wand pose, or a lot tighter. Like, there's just things on the Afterlife one I like more. Ankle pivot would have been nice as well, and I just really wish that the knees on this guy were a lot tighter. Like, there's just things on the Afterlife one I like more, but then it also has problems that this one didn't have, but this one doesn't have as much design as I like on the other one. So honestly, I don't really like one over the other, and that's why I give both of the ratings to this figure the exact same 8 out of 10. I like both of them, and don't like certain things, but for completely different reasons. And also, it's always nice to get a pack-in comic with a Transformers figure. So anyway, that is basically it for this review. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give me a like on the video, comment down below what you guys think. Time!